Hello, YouTube. I have usurped Ursula. She is no more. I am the artist now. So, I'm Bones. I write comics, and my wife, Ursula, she used to draw them. But not actually. Okay, so in the real world, outside of the fantasy world of webcomics, people have like art assistants and stuff, and it's really cool and it's very helpful. And I thought I should learn how to do art instead of being a burden. And by a burden, I mean I said to Ursula one day, let's do a painter style comic and okay, that's not how I approached her. I approached her, let's do a black and white comic, super easy, and we'll make it like 2,000 pages, but it'll be fine. And then I upgraded it to a colored painted comic thing, and she hated me for doing this. And then I decided recently that the only way this will ever get done is if I learn how to be helpful. So I have learned to be helpful. Over the past 5 months, I've been learning how to color comic pages. I'm not an artist. I don't get art. I was a graphic designer for a little bit, but it was more like using art programs very technically. I wasn't doing anything really artistic. I was like tracing things so that machines could read them. I've doodled a lot. I've done some drawing in my days. I used some pencil crayons once, in school, but I've never really gotten into the world of color before, and I'll be real, super intimidating to me. Looking at color, I would just see it and I'd be like, that is so pretty. Could never be me. I'm just not that guy. I'm just gonna go black and white and never challenge myself. We of course put that behind us, not beneath us, behind us. We put that behind us, and I started out by doing flat colors for Ursula, and then I moved forward and I've started learning real good. And I've been going for 5 months, and I would like to tell you all about the 10 things that have come to mind. What a soft title. But the 10 things I've kind of learned in the past 5 months. I should probably do 5 things in 5 months, but that's not the list I wrote, guys. I don't know why I added 10. I'm recording this live. I record my audios live now, so that chat can feed me information. Like the fact that the first thing that I did was I picked up a book by the Dinotopia guy. Thank you, Ink, in the chat for telling me this. James Gurney, Color and Light, a guide for the realist painter. I think it's like one of those ones. It's kind of like the animator survival guide. It's like peak, right? It's like it's on the list of learning books. So I read that. Getting a foundation in some color theory was good. I've heard a lot about art because I work with Ursula, and I work on this channel and she says a lot and I have to edit the videos sometimes, so I've through osmosis I've picked up things. But starting off there was a good start, and I would recommend that if you haven't. After I got some foundation, I moved on to the second part, which is actually doing the thing, which is kind of the part that I've been stuck at forever. I've never been confident enough to try and do the art, do the color. What I did was I studied Ursula's comics. I studied specifically 9 Point because that's the comic that I want to be able to color for her. I studied how all of the pages up until now have been done, and I used the eyedropper tool, which is very important because color is a tricksy devil. Color relativity will mess you up. And yeah, so I studied that, and I also studied all of the different comics that she had used as reference and inspiration for 9 Point, mainly being Cucumber Quest, of course. A wonderful lineless comic, amazing color, So I studied that, and by study, I mean I went kind of in depth and I tried to recreate pages, and that was really helpful. That gave me some confidence when I was able to like accurately, as best as I could. Like I think I did an okay job in matching Ursula's style, and learned a bit from using the little color picker and seeing what's happening in all the beautiful art that I love. And yeah, so that was like my basic starting point. Let's actually move into the third thing. I think the third first thing. So like what I've noticed, like picking the flat colors, the mid-tones, and looking at like pitfalls, I guess. Like your midtones are kind of like your character's like base colors, right? And then they're like shifted to match like the environment that they're in. But then you have to leave like a lot of wiggle room with your midtones because you want to be able to push them far. I found in the past, before I actually sat down and learned how to color, I would pick something that's very light or very dark, very stark to begin with, because in my mind, like contrast is a very important thing. I've always been told to like heighten contrast. That's drilled into my head from high school, is like when you're doing art, heighten the contrast, muddle the forms. But when you're actually sitting down to pick the base layer, some amount of contrast is good, but you need places to travel to, because if you make your base layer too dark, like you can't explore the shadow much at all, or the light. You need to actually pick a mid-tone when you're picking a mid-tone. But then you equally need to not be afraid to like actually go hard in either direction with like the shadow or the light. Moving on to like the fourth kind of thing that came to mind in like these 5 months, alongside the midtones, I think shadows are pretty cool, guys. I think they're pretty neat. Shadows are actually way more colorful than you think they are. I think that's cool. I find it really fun to really mess around with the different hues and saturations of shadow. I did learn the thing where you take purple and you do the purple multiply layer. I think we were talking about that a while ago in chat, and the multiply layer of purple is very, very good, very simple thing to do, but there's just like so much more you can do with shadows can be like really bright and cool and interesting and fun to experiment with. Using black is fine, but don't use black just because you think shadows are black. Use black because you want something that's incredibly stark. Something chiaroscuro, right? Some chiaroscuro ass art. That's how you know I only read books. I've never sat down and drew to art. And number 5, since we're talking about shadows, number 5 is a point about light. Light is purely vibes based. Sorry. What I've learned about lighting is that you can get away with not paying attention to your light sources pretty good. I think you should try, but your light source, I think your light source, especially in like comics and like really like animated emotional stuff, it tends to be like more non-diegetic than it tends to be like actual in-world lighting. You can do fun stuff with in-world lighting and using like the different light sources that would naturally be there to like create the same kind of vibes, but it's fine to just like make a really dark, like turn off all the lights suddenly just to match a vibe. It's almost like stage lighting. Like that's kind of what I imagine it as when I'm doing colors. Like I imagine that it's like a play and you have like the regular kind of setup, and then suddenly like, you know, a gel goes down, you know, some below lighting happens. You know, like you want to make the composition work good, and fixating on like where the actual lighting is doesn't really matter too much. I think it especially doesn't matter like if you get it in the right direction, because Ursula keeps messing up Marble's pattern. Like we have a cat character, he's a calico, and he has like one side of his face is orange and the other has like a little black spot, and she mixes it up back and forth and no one notices. No one has noticed. No one's commented on the fact that I haven't fixed the Patreon picture where it is completely flipped. So I don't think people really notice lighting stuff that much. Just in general, like, you can get away with a lot in comics, I think. Do whatever you want. Just vibe, okay? Just vibing is like half the battle, I've learned. So my sixth point is to find palettes that you like. Find them existing in the world, I guess. So like horror, like I was working on Pretty Mouth, which is like a horror comic, and I love Mandy, the movie with Nicolas Cage. That movie has some of the coolest lighting in it. I've been using that as a lot of like inspiration and using the color picker with that, because there's some light that I would not have. There's like colors I wouldn't have ever like gone to. Like there's a specific red that I hate because it got used in one of our first comics in a very bad way. It's a very painful red, and using the color picker and finding that painful red existing within a palette was really cool to use, and it made me want to work with it. I thought that was neat. I like to take from that kind of stuff. I like to take actual like screen caps and stuff, and take palettes, just rip them from the world. I was working on like a picture of a mountain, and there's so many beautiful pictures of mountains. So I just found a picture of a mountain and I bumped up the saturation on it, just kind of messed around with it for a bit until I found kind of what I liked, and then I used that kind of as a reference point, and then I kind of messed around with it more, but you know, whatever. Yeah, like that's helpful. If you like something, it's okay to take it. No one can copyright a palette. It's like a drum beat, right? With that in mind, when you're sitting down to pick a palette, I have realized, because when I'm working, I have a screen recording it. I have a screen often playing it in front of me. So I have my recording screen, I have my other screen, and then I have my actual iPad. And if you look at it, it looks different on every single screen. And I know that when it prints, it'll be different. And what I have said as a mantra to myself is that I don't worry about futzing to get the perfect color on your screen. You want everything to just look good relative to itself. I think it's a big time sink to try and find the perfect purple or whatever, when if you look on every single screen, it's completely different, and purple is awful to print. If you are not, it's just awful to print. A lot of vibrant colors don't print at all like you expect them to. RGB versus CMYK is a world of difference. So like, just don't fret about it. It's not worth it. You want everything to just look good together, regardless of what screen it gets placed on. It's always going to be like wibbled in different directions. So I just don't worry about that. I don't stress. You know, comics take forever. There's not enough time to stress about it. Speaking of like not stressing, I've really systematized the way that I do things. That's one thing I think is good to do. Very helpful is I like to sit and do one page and really figure out what it looks like, and then just use that as the basis for all other pages. I find it really helpful with drawing like a more painty kind of looking comic, because when you're starting it, it doesn't look good. It's hard to trust the process. But if I write down the process, if I write down like all the steps that I need to take to finish a page, I can do an entire scene a lot more confidently and a lot more efficiently, because there's obviously, you lay down the flats, you go in and you lay down like the highlight color and the shadow color, you go back, you blend it. Usually before that I do like a clip layer and do like a little bit of airbrushing or whatever, but like I distill like all the steps I need to take, and then I just trust that it worked and I go through it. On the other side of that, I like to mark off little panels and make sure that I push colors in different directions. I forgot to do that in my recent pages, so I didn't get to like play with them as much, but I like to like mark off little sections where it's like I'm gonna mess around here and try and learn something fun, because I think it's good to learn to be consistent, but it's also good to push yourself and do different things. That's X number point. The final thing I would say is just to keep moving forward. Like, that's the most important thing. That's always the important thing. Whenever you're learning anything, when I sat down to learn to play piano, when I way back in the day learned how to write, it's all about like just doing it. Being bad at things is good. Not overthinking things is good. Just keep pushing, just keep swimming, yeah. And it's so true. Like, you can't get stuck on things, guys, or you get nothing done. And the whole point of this is I want to get things done. And a side point is I like to take the worst the worst page, the page I hate the most, and I like to look at it and refer back to it. Anytime I'm like, ugh, I don't think this is good, I want to scrap it, I look at the worst page that is published, and for some reason, people really like that page, and then I just like, I'm good. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get away from perfectionism. It helps when someone likes... I think recently, having a lot of people like my worst stuff, and Ursula's worst stuff, obviously, because my stuff isn't really apparent at this point, but like having people like that stuff and learning that they're not lying is kind of what has helped keep that down. People keep saying that the colors is good, and I say, you know what, if they say it's good, it's good. It's good. People like it, we're good. And I'm just gonna keep getting better. You can only get better if you do new things and expand your horizons, you know? You just play through the difficult parts. But I have rambled enough. If you want to hear me ramble more, you can check out the rest of the channel. I forgot to tell you to like the video. It's very important. I will be back with another video next week. Until then, have a good time. Or you can see me on stream, because I've been doing that pretty much daily. And if you're not up in the middle of the night, you can look at it elsewise. Anyways, alright, we're gonna save this video. Oh, that's not the right button.